Hi everyone, it's Trena here at John's Furniture Repair. About to start a new project, and it's this exterior door. It's solid oak. We're just doing one side, so we're going to be stripping off all the old varnish. It's alligatored and chipping and peeling off, and there's a little bit of damage. So let me show you what we're doing. Okay, so you can see a little closer how yucky this finish is. I think there's been just layers applied over to protect the door over the years, which is always good. Keeps the veneers intact and everything like that. Doors are made of really thick skins of veneer with a solid core, usually framed with pieces blocked together inside that are laminated, and then a nice skin of your wood on top of the oak. So you can see the sun's gotten to the finish really well here. It's all almost looks charred, and it's separating. The varnish is just really old, and this happens over time. So here we've got a fly and the brass knob, and we'll take this all off of here and shine that up nice with our Flitz stuff. And it's got nice beveled glass in here, so we'll just be cleaning that up. It's got some varnish over the years on it, so we'll get those nice and clean. But yeah, basically just a good cleanup, strip everything off, and then we're going to be doing a brushed on finish with varnish. And I always use marine varnish, or spar varnish is what they call it when working with stuff like that. Got my first sliver of the job. There we go. And usually 3 to 4 coats buffed in between. A little bit of damage here from some stuff, so we'll be fixing that, taking out nails and things. Probably, you hang a wreath on your front door. That's fine. You can give them some nice hooks to put on there later. Beautiful old lock. We'll take this out and service it, just clean it, basically. I'm not a locksmith, but I do know how to clean a lock, so I'll show you that. And they're always really beautiful inside. So yeah, I think all of the veneers intact thanks to this slop of varnish that someone did. So awesome. Well, let's get to work. Okay, so I'm just gonna take off, looks like there's a set screw missing there, so there's just one left. It's really important to be careful with these. Very fine machine threads, and hard to get for some sizes, and always when working with antiques, taking extra care not to mess up parts because they're hard to find. So it still doesn't really want to budge. I can see it kind of moving on the bottom one, but for some reason it's just not. Okay, so it's a little Allen set screw. So that's, I mean, I've seen Allen screws, but not with these types of screws before. So once I get these little guys out, here, see? That's why I always have to just move carefully and make sure that I'm not just forcing things, because there are so many different ways that things are put together. So there we go. Got those little guys off. And now this should unscrew from the post. Awesome. Good, so now we can really clean it up nicely and get it all back to a nice shiny brass, and then seal that. Okay, so I got the handle and the spindle out. This is the interior side. So I'm just gonna keep that in this little box here. And I've got the interior side of the hardware off here, so that'll all get a nice clean. And so now it's just getting the cylinder out. So to do that, I did need the key, but I found that my key works good enough to get a grip on something in there. So you don't need a lot of pressure. you just want to take, there's a set screw. So just like your handles have a little set screw, your cylinder has a set screw as well. So you just want to loosen this maybe 4 turns. I'll do maybe 5 turns on this one, just so that this is loose enough. And usually the set screw is on the exterior side where your cylinder would be. That's the set screw. And then you just use your key to carefully, it's nice if you don't have your car keys and your gym membership on the same thing, because that's annoying. Anyways, I can do it by hand now. And you just really carefully remove that cylinder. So these threads are really, really fine, and that's where that set screw sits in from in here. So you really have to loosen that. One of these lines up with that, and before you get that out. So be careful when you're putting these back in, not to cross thread. Just be really, really careful with this guy. So I'm gonna put that in here. Excuse me. And now I can remove this plate, and I'll be able to clean that up really nicely. Put that in my box. And just keep all these screws, which will all get a nice little polish, in the box. And now I should be able to just pop the screwdriver in behind and get this mortise out. I'll just use the door handle here to wiggle it out. Awesome. Great. So this guy, nice and hefty, needs a good clean. So usually I will take off the plate screws here and just clean everything with WD-40, give it a good scrub. Okay, so that is all off on both sides. And that'll give me a nice chance to completely clean this area and sand it without running into the plate. It's really important that you get hardware out of the way, because it makes your job a lot cleaner. Okay, so let's get to stripping the door. Okay, so I've just got the outer frame sanded with 120 in the sander. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but a lot of doors like this one sit behind a screen door. So up to this point here is where the bottom of the screen door panel was, and then this was all screen. So you can see the staining, just the water staining here up top. So I sanded this because it's had the same thing. So what I want to do now is check to make sure that I'm getting the color up. If not, then we're going to have to work with some acid. So the way I do that is I'm just going to grab some alcohol. And I'm going to check what it looks like when how even it is, if the sanding did actually get up that discoloration there. And it does look pretty good. Can still see a little bit of it, but I'll be able to fade that out for sure with the color work. So I just need to sand the panels and all the trim work. The other thing I need to do is fill a couple of big gouges in the door, and because it's an exterior door, I want to use something really water stable. Even though varnish is going to be covering it, I just may as well take the extra measure. So I'm going to use epoxy. Here. So I'll just use natural color epoxy brickwood. And there's a couple of big chunks out on the bottom, usually there are, here. So I'll just fill that in. Usually the bottom has a lot of wear just from weather stripping and stuff over the years that's rubbed up against it. And then there was that big break up here that I did have chunks of wood for, but they've gone missing. So that's fine. We'll just fill it in and do some grain work here. They would have been kind of a butt to re-glue anyways, so I'm not really that sad about losing them. A couple of holes from hooks. Up. And I can put a new hook on for a wreath. Since we're on our way to Christmas, we'll have a nice new shiny door to hang it on. Okay. So I'll just work around getting all these guys filled up, and then we'll get on to detail sanding. So I'm going to sand the interior here with my triangle best tool detail sander, this guy, and then I'll get on to hand sanding, doing everything in 120. So I won't go any lower than that for a exterior door. I want a good tooth for my varnish to stick to. Mechanical bond is half of the battle with getting a good durable finish, especially for varnish, being that it's oil-based. It can tend to flake if you've got too smooth of a surface. So never really sand past 120 when you're varnishing. When you're oiling, you want to sand up to 220 because it's a penetrating finish, whereas varnish and lacquer and poly and all those other types of finishes are a sealing, sit on the surface kind of finish. So you need to make sure you have a good mechanical bond, which means not sanding your wood too smooth. All right, so let's get to sanding this. Okay, so we've got everything hand sanded down to 120, and I'm ready to kind of figure out a stain here. So this is the color that the other side is. It's kind of a very light burnt umber. It's got a little bit of orange and yellow and a little bit of red. So I don't want to go too dark because I know I'm going to need to do some tinting where the wood was a little bit uneven because of the screen door. So I'm thinking I want to start with just a glaze color instead of a full strength wiping stain. So I'm going to start there. Open this up. This is just Mohawk's glaze here that we've got. Available at Richelieu. If you guys are looking for all the products that I use, I've done a video on that exactly, called The Products I Use. So do check that out if you're wondering about all the things and where I get my sandpaper and what kind of stain I use and stripper and all that kind of stuff. All that information is in that video. And while you're at it, check out all my videos. It's a little bit of work to make these, so it's nice when you get a lot of viewers. Okay, just put that aside. So I'm just going to brush a little area to see how that looks next to this. And I can already tell it's perfect. Yep, so let's get to staining. I'll grab a mask. Okay, so I got the stain all on and it can dry overnight. I found a couple of extra little putty spots, so I'll just give those a little sand tomorrow and touch them up with some more stain / glaze. But I think we got a pretty good color match, and yeah, so definitely for varnishing also, make sure your stain or whatever you're using for color is very dry, and then you shouldn't have any problems. It actually stained up pretty nice. Looks very yellow on this camera. iPhones kind of suck at color, but it's got a really nice hue, orangish hue that you can kind of see a little bit more at this angle, or maybe from this angle. But the screen door area is stained up really nicely, so barely any color work to do. All right, so we'll let this dry overnight and then we'll go on with the spray varnish. Okay, so stain has dried overnight and I've kind of tacked off the whole surface and ran over with my hand because you can feel little pieces of whatever that you can clean off better with your hand than a rag. So it is ready for varnish. I'm going to use Old Master spray varnish and I'm going to apply it with the most expensive brush ever. So these are like 25 cents. New one every coat. Don't worry about old dried varnish in your brush, and it leaves a pretty nice surface. So this is what I recommend. I know there's some pretty nice varnish brushes out there for your money, but can't really beat a new foam brush for every coat. Or so that's my experience. Okay, so you want to make sure to stir up your varnish, not too vigorously. You don't want to infiltrate water or air into your varnish. So I've got that stirred up pretty good. And I'm gonna work from my inside panels, just like I did with the stain. I'm gonna do these guys first, and all my cross grain panels, and then I'll finish off with the nice long pieces coming right off the end. So here we go. Color's gonna pop. The first coat of varnish always looks like shit. So if you're varnishing something and you do the first coat and you come back and it's dry and it's really rough and doesn't look super good, that's what it's supposed to look like. You're not gonna really get something looking good until you're, depending on how thick you go, until your second or third coat, and you need to sand in between. So I'm never too picky about my first coat. I just wanna make sure I get all my edges covered so that when I'm sanding, I have sufficient amount of varnish to buff out. So this is called tipping off. I'm just gonna take my tip of my brush really gently and flow straight lines with my grain at the end of getting my varnish everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna get to do the whole door and you guys can watch. All right, so we got the first coat laid down. Looks pretty good. I don't think it needs a whole lot of color work at all. Got those putty spots. Probably have to do a little bit of work right there. And let that all soak in. And it'll soak in pretty good because it was dry in some areas. So the first coat's gonna look really nasty as it dries and cures. And then we'll give it a nice buff and the second coat will look a lot better. So my foam brush, I'm gonna take it and break off the end and just push it right out. And guess what? I got a maple dowel for free. that goes into my little pile of repair sticks. And that's how you save money. Anyways, this will dry overnight and then we'll give it a buff. Okay, so it's the next morning. Everything is nice and dry, and I'm gonna give it a little scuff up with a gray Scotch pad and a very light scuff up because this oak did soak in a lot of the first coat. So you can probably see it's really dry looking still. And it's not got a lot of dust nibs or anything in it. So I'm not gonna really go hard with this. I'm just gonna go about like that over the whole surface, and all the flat parts. And then I'm not even gonna barely even hit these profiles because I do not want to take off any varnish on edges. I need to build up there, and it's hard to build a finish on an edge, and that's the first part that your varnish will fail, is if you've got a light application on an edge somewhere, the moisture will start to get in and start to lift that layer of varnish right on that edge, and then it'll start peeling along the panel. So you really want to make sure you have, for one, that you rounded off the edge a little bit when you were sanding so that you could get finish to stick. It's really hard to get finish to stick on a very pointy corner. You need to round it off a little bit, or else the finish will just kind of pull away from that corner. You want there to be surface area there for your varnish to be able to sit on, and that way your varnish won't fail as soon as it would if you had a really pointy corner that you couldn't get any hang up on. All right, so that's basically the extent of the prep that I'll do before this second coat. I'm just gonna, again, run my hand along, wipe off any little dust nib that I can feel. Make sure I don't have any big chunks of anything, and then we're ready for round 2. So new foam brush on the second day. Give this a stir again. Just a gentle swirl. This is a satin varnish, so there are flattening pastes that you need to stir into the whole lot of it, or else you'll have an uneven sheen. If you're just going for straight high gloss varnish, you don't even need to mix it. But it's always the flattening paste that you want to mix into mix evenly into this. All right, so just like I did on the first coat, starting on the interior panels, and then on the horizontal, and down the long sides. So here we go. Coat 2 always looks way better. Okay, hey guys. I just got in the shop this morning and decided that I wanted to go a little bit deeper with this color. So you can do that a couple ways. You can do another layer of glaze after a little sketch stand. This is actually breaking the rules, mixing lacquer and varnish, but you can do lacquer over varnish. Sorry, you can do varnish over lacquer, but not lacquer over varnish, but I'm going to be doing that anyways. These guys are mostly acetone based, so they just kind of bite into the finish. Show me a finisher that doesn't break the rules once in a while. I certainly do. My father always has. Definitely do a test area first to make sure it's good, but I know this works. So I'm just going to hit this with a little bit of burnt umber just to give it a little bit deeper red and kill a little bit of the yellow, because the other side's a lot darker for a bunch of reasons, but this is the color that it would be. So we're going to match it to the side of that and get a little bit more red. So I'm just going to throw a mask on. I've got my little ventilation system running right now, and I'll put this guy on. So we're all good. Just going to hit the edges first, so I get the detail, and then the panel on the center. Just a very light coating. This will also even out everything as well. And we'll do this side. And I'm just going to hit the middle there. And we'll do this thing. Just like in the high varnish. Same kind of pattern. Just want to get that nice orangey red. A little less of the yellow. And then I'll hit the lower side. Yeah, I like how that looks. So I think that's a lot closer to the color. I might hit it with a bit of raw umber to darken it a bit. In fact, yeah, I'll do that. And then I think that's perfect. So let me just grab that color. So that's the original color. And you can see, if you can, on the underside. Can't really see too much of that. It's pretty dirty looking. But anyways, we were going for the color on the side here. And I think we've got it pretty bang on. Just need to go a little deeper
And I really think we've got it here, so perfect. So you don't really need to let this stuff dry. I will let it dry for a tiny bit just so it's not shiny in spots, and then I'm going to hit it with the third coat of varnish.
Okay, so that's the third coat. I went pretty heavy to cover all the color work. And I presume I'll probably do a fourth coat, even though it's looking nice and filled. Usually when you do a little bit of color work, your finish lay down is a little bit textured just because that acetone does bite into the previous layer. So I'll probably buff this down pretty nicely and then do a nice final fourth coat at the end of the day so I get the best results while it dries. But I really, really like the color touch, and it's really not showing up on this camera very well. iPhone is not super great at color work. But anyways, while we're waiting for that to dry, I think we can move on and address all our hardware here. So I'll get set up and we'll take care of that. Okay, so I've got the lock here, and I'm going to be working with WD-40 to clean this up. And just when you work with this stuff around finishes, make sure you don't have any wood around, especially with lacquer. It really doesn't play nice. So just keep your space clean and cover your workbench so you're not contaminating something later on. So we're going to take off this plate and clean everything inside, and it's usually just a couple screws and then a set screw. And you can see this is the set screw that went down into the lock cylinder, and it went into one of these grooves here. This is where it screws into. So you want to take this whole screw out because it's on the front plate here. So that it's free. Pull that guy out, and then I'm going to check the other side. Yep, this one has one too. So I'm just going to take that side out. And then flip this guy over. And this should pop off. Actually, it might pop off the other side. One more screw right there. There we go. So it's not in too bad a shape, it's just dirty. And you just want to, keep everything where it is. This guy kind of slipped down when we took that piece off. So this actually comes all the way off, but I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to leave everything intact here. And I'm just going to spray WD-40 on the spring, all these moving mechanisms that need to operate smoothly. And then I'm going to take a little brush and I'm just going to kind of scrub all the pieces, get off any chunks and things like that. And just work carefully. You don't want to open a bigger can of worms than you already did. But it's nice if you can get these things nice and clean and then oiled back up. Everything will work for the next 150 years. If there's nothing wrong with it, it just keeps working. So just got to maintain these beautiful old locks. Awesome. So I'm going to hold this together and I'm just going to raise it up a little bit so that I can wash it down. So I'm just going to actually rinse the lock out. And I got a rag here.
that's looking a little better. I really wish I could get into this a little bit more. Just going to get some of these chunks off of this guy. And then in there a bit, where it goes up against it. It's nice to get a little bit cleaner. Okay, so now I'm going to take some Varsol and I'm just going to rinse it down that way. There we are. Okay, so that's the extent of the cleaning I'll do on this guy. And just give this a little bit of an oil as well. Great. Now I can just clean up the back panel a little bit. Just wipe it off mostly. Plenty of oil on this rag. Okay, so this guy back on. First we're gonna get this guy back in there. There we go. I'm going to put the set screw in on this side. I don't think there was a screw there. Must have been missing. Okay, and then I'll put these two here. Okay, so I got everything back together and everything is working great. And just want to show you, I put another screw in here where it was missing. It's not the same slotted screw, but it was the only one with the threads that matched the pitch on this guy. And I don't want this side of this panel coming up because there's a little spring under here that keeps these guys under load. And if that pops up, then that's no good. So I just want to keep this closed, and unfortunately I can't match the screw head, but at least it'll be safe and held together and all the parts will stay where they need to stay. Better than nothing. So the last thing we need to do to take care of this is get this brass part all shined up. And Flitz, the brand of polishers, sent me a bunch of stuff in the mail, and this stuff here you just spray on. So I'm going to try that on here and see how that works. You're supposed to just leave it on for a minute and it removes the tarnish. See how that works. I'm going to get rid of this. I re-oiled everything too, so it's got a fresh oiling inside the lock. So I'm going to put this aside. And I'm going to get some new newspaper. And get rid of my gloves. And the rag and the WD-40 are over where they belong, out of the way. I'll put down some fresh paper here. Okay, so it's been about a minute. I'm gonna just kind of take it off. Well, I think you're supposed to rinse it off with water, actually. Let me just get my spray water. I'll just spray that water on there and rinse that off. Don't want to dunk it in water, that's not good for it. Yeah, it did a nice job of taking off a lot of the tarnish. I can see there's like a little bit of finish left on here. So I'm just gonna get a bit of an abrasive and get that off. Probably some old varnish. Okay, so got the varnish off, and now we're going to use our Flitz polish just on a rag. Just going to pop a bit on there. So Flitz also sent me their ceramic sealant. So because handles get touched a lot, you do want to seal. And they say use an applicator to put it on. I'm just going to kind of, I don't have an applicator. I guess you just put it on a rag. But anyways, I'm just going to put it on there and let that dry. Oh, it says do not let it dry. Okay, so I'll wipe it off right away then. Sorry, just learning these products. So I'm going to use this really nice cloth they sent me, and I'm just going to buff it right off. And then that should hopefully protect the shine for a little while. This is the interior knob, so it's a little better shape than the exterior one. It says it's silicone-free, water-based, better than wax. And just kind of buff it up afterwards, and there you are. Pretty nice. These products are pretty useful, so I'm really enjoying learning how to use them. Anyways, got that nice deep brass color, which a lot of polishes don't get you that deep of a brass shine. So that's pretty nice. Anyways, you got lots more to do. You got the exterior knob, which is going to be quite a thing. It's got a lot of crud and stuff in the cracks there that I'll have to clean off first before. And then this is the interior plate. That needs quite a bit of cleanup as well. And this is the exterior plate. So really, really dirty and lots of tarnish on. So I'll just work with one thing at a time so I don't get ahead of myself. too far. Okay, so it's the next morning. It's looking pretty great. But I am gonna do another coat. It's got a little bit of roughness to the finish, which usually happens after a bit of color work. So I am gonna hit this last coat with a 320 paper and cut any of these little dust nibs and things down so it's nice and smooth, and hit it one more time with the varnish, and then it'll dry for the day and be done. Now I ran out of space on my phone because I have so much awesome footage for you guys on lots of different videos. So we did end up finishing the polishing on all the hardware here. So Flitz products do a nice job of cleaning everything up pretty easily. So this has all got their ceramic coating on, and that'll really help it just to stay nice and shiny and not to tarnish too soon after it goes, because this has got to be outside, and so does this piece here, and it needs some protection, so glad to have that. And yeah, so I'll just get my paper. This is how I roll my paper. If you do it that way, it sticks to itself. It doesn't come, I know a lot of people just fold it in half, but then it slides on itself. If you do it this way, you've got two sides plus another fresh side in here. So you get a little bit more use out of your paper, and you can hang on to it without it sliding around too much. So I'm gonna sand a little heavier than I did with the Scotch pad. I really kind of want to cut this last coat before the finished coat down pretty good to make sure I've got everything nice and smooth. And wherever you see these little white pieces, that's where it's touching on something that was just embedded in the finish, piece of dust. So after I'm done hitting it with the 320, what I do before is grab my, wherever I put it, there we go, my gray Scotch pad again. And because I don't want any scratches mirroring through, you could do this with 4/0 steel wool as well. I just give it a buff so it's really smooth. And this kind of just gets in between the grains, and oak's got a lot of heavy grains, and it just smooths out any little, you know, got a little sanding scratch there because the sandpaper is a little bit more abrasive than the Scotch pad. So we can just bring it up to another level of grit with the Scotch pad, and that would be the nice surface to do the last coat of varnish on right there. So I'll do that on the whole door. Of course, not going to really hit the profiles too much. Just going to get the middle, any little dust nibs that are making it not smooth. I'm not going to hit the edge at all. I want as much varnish hang up on those as I can, so I'm not going to be removing any material there. But I'll get to setting this whole door, and then we can get another coat on, and that's that. Okay, so the door is looking pretty awesome, and it feels really nice. I don't even have to do anything extra to get it to feel any smoother. The finish dried without a lot of stuff in it. I didn't do a lot of things in the shop yesterday that would kick up a lot of dust, so it's perfect. So I'm just gonna get all these pieces of tape off of the windows here and clean it all up. There'll always be some varnish that's snuck behind, but they were dirty before too, and we did get most of the old stuff off in the stripping process. So anything that's left here would be new. So just gonna take a clean rag now and use a little bit of alcohol to clean up if there's any little extra drips that got through the masking. Just gonna fill this up. So I'll do that and then we'll clean those up. And if you have some that's a little bit thick, you can just use your glass scraper to get off the big chunks or the blobs. It always looks so nice having all the glass cleaned up. Just makes the job look a little more professional, I think. If all of those details are taken care of. And I will clean the other side too, once I get this stood up and off of the bench. Okay, and then I'll take some glass cleaner and just clean all the residue off that's left and give these guys a nice shine. Okay, so this one is done. 4 coats of varnish and a beautiful burnt umber color. And it's gonna need to cure for a couple days, and the hardware is all cleaned and oiled and reinstalled. Flitz Products did a really nice job on the brass. So yeah, got the windows cleaned for the most part. It's looking really nice. It's a beautiful oak. So thanks for joining me on this one, guys. And don't forget to check out all of our other videos that we have on our YouTube channel, John's Furniture Repair YouTube channel. And if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Cheers.